So now let's take a look at the stages of change, and I'll remind you of the map of recovery is seldom linear. And we talked about in module 2 how difficult behavior change is, not just for folks in recovery, but for us everyday folks with ability and resources, right? How many of you have tried to change a behavior and have not been able to do it successfully, or not be able to do it successfully the first time, second time, or third time, right? There are things called stages of change, and we're going to take a look at that. But I want to remind you of this map to recovery, and that it is windy and it involves a lot of different concepts along the way. So there's a model called the Stages of Change, and this model was developed by James Prochaska and Carlo Di'Clemente in 1983. And what they realized after a lot of research about smoking cessation was that most individuals return to use despite having many of the resources and tools available. Excuse me. So they did a lot of research on this, and what they found is that most individuals, when attempting a behavior change, travel through what they call these 5 stages of change before achieving a successful behavior change. And folks in recovery are no different. In fact, not only does this apply to most behavior change, but especially to those in recovery, seeking recovery from substance use disorder. So we have 5 stages in the 5 stages of change, and the first one is pre-contemplation. And in pre-contemplation, an individual has no interest whatsoever in changing their behavior. They probably don't recognize that their behavior is causing problems in their life. They probably defend their behavior and might criticize you for attacking them. And the person just doesn't see their behavior as a problem. This is pre-contemplation stage. Folks can stay in this stage. There's even when the idea that substance use or any behavior is causing negative consequences in one's life, a person can stay in pre-contemplation forever. I have a colleague who is working with an individual now who, and this is it's not uncommon for folks with substance use disorder, that they're just really unaware of the extent of the problems that are happening in their lives as a result of drug use or alcohol use. And think about back to module 1, where we showed the couple video clips from Dr. Kevin McCauley, and he talked about the damage to the brain. The damage to the brain can be so significant that a person might not even be able to come to the conclusion or the realization that what the effects of the drug use or alcohol use is on their lives, and how, of course, it's affecting their families and loved ones. This is a natural phenomenon. The second stage is contemplation. An individual can be aware of the problem. They can be aware that there is a goal and a desired behavior change. And maybe they're just not willing to take any steps to get there. They're thinking about it. They're tossing it around. They're in a stage of ambivalence. And let me just take weight loss, for example, or exercise, or putting your phone down. The contemplation stage might look like for somebody, I really need to lose weight. I really need to lose weight. I know I need to lose weight. I have trouble with my breathing. It's potentially put me in pre-diabetes. I know that I need to lose weight. So we're aware of some consequences. Similarly with the texting and the phones, I need to put this phone down. I'm on the phone all the time. It's interfering with my personal life. You know the consequences. You're just not ready to do anything about it. That's contemplation. In contemplation, an individual is really struggling to see the long-term benefits of the behavior change. We're a society driven on immediate results, right? If we can't see it, I want it now, I want what I want when I want it, chances are you're going to stay in contemplation for a long time if you don't realize that it's going to take a while to achieve your drug use goals or whatever behavior change goals that you might want. The next stage is preparation. In preparation, you intend to take action. For weight loss, maybe you start to consider some different nutrition patterns. Maybe you see a nutritionist. Maybe you look into exercise and you start mapping that out. For texting, maybe you make a commitment to say, my behavior is really irrational and I'm going to start leaving my phone at work. Okay, so you're not really taking the steps yet, and you haven't actually made a commitment to take the steps towards behavior change, but you're preparing. And this is a really, really, really important step. Once you get past contemplation, you're aware of the problem and you get into preparation. This preparation, the mapping out of the steps to take, is definitely critical to the success and the outcomes. It doesn't mean you're going to get it right the first time. When you go into preparation and then you go into action, you're practicing the desired behaviors. Maybe you've implemented the map that you plan, the plan that you mapped out. You're following the steps. You're checking off your check mark every day. And then somewhere along the way, you just return to that other pattern of behavior, the same pattern of behavior that you're wishing to change. And you find yourself back in preparation. It's okay. It's part of the journey. Seldom is any behavior change ever linear and ever achieved with the first attempt. Some folks might end back up in contemplation, where the self-talk comes back and says, you know what, my weight isn't actually a problem. You know what, this texting and all this email at home, it's not really a problem, right? That's your brain, once again, trying to remain in its comfort zone. And you've got to combat that with counter self-talk, right? You've got to change the self-talk and you've got to go back to the rewards drive behavior and be thinking about, do you want to live your life this way in status quo, or do you want to change your life and think about the rewards? Because the rewards are going to get you up to maintenance and turn you around. Again, if you're in contemplation, in preparation, you're going to realign, you're going to assess, you're going to determine a different course of action, a different map, and then you're going to go back into action. This could happen 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times where you go back and forth, and that's okay. It's important that you understand not everything works for everybody. It's not a cookie cutter mold. Once a person is in action for 6 months or longer, they will go into maintenance stage once they've mapped out what works for them and the new behavior becomes a lifestyle. You have successfully achieved your behavior change. Experts say this happens between 6 months and 1 year. Now think about that for a person with substance use disorder. With all the lifestyle changes, thinking back to the return to use module, with all the lifestyle behavioral changes that have to occur, individuals with substance use disorder are going to go through this stages of change model many, many, many times for each different behavior. And so if they're trying to stay away from old friends and trying to discontinue drug use at the same time, they might have a return to behavior in each one or one separately without the other. Okay, so we want to be mindful. And I was thinking about this yesterday because I am diligently trying to map out my day and my time schedule every day. And I'm pretty good about these things. I mean, I'd like to think I've mastered it. And for the past 2 days, I have neglected to map out my time schedule. And I almost think I need to write a note to myself every morning that says, remember to do your time schedule every day. It's human nature, folks. We all need to be reminded. We're all going to have slips and return to patterns of behavior. It's part of the journey. Embrace it. Remember back to the return to use module where I said not every wave is a tsunami. Oftentimes, if the self-talk is correct and if the reward is great enough and we can focus on the reward, this return to old patterns of behavior is an opportunity for growth, an opportunity to solidify the steps moving forward. It's important to know a return to old patterns of behavior is an unofficial 6th stage. So Prochaska and Di'Clemente created a 5-stage of change model. There are some models out there that say relapse is a stage of change. It is an unofficial stage of change. And what that means is not everybody returns to old patterns of behavior. And finding a pathway of solution works for them, right? So some people will return to that pattern, some won't. But it's important that we don't promote this as a stage of change because in some cases it gives people permission to return to use. And we want to stay away from that. Some limitations of the stages of change include recovery from substance use, like any other chronic disease, is a process. All right, so the stages of change really isn't recognizing holistically that it's a disease, it's a chronic disease, and a long-term process. The theory also ignores the social context in which change occurs. So for some people, income matters, right? Resources matter. Social supports matter. Length of time using and the substance use and the amount of use and the drug types used, that all matters. This theory does not take that into consideration. So that's really important as helpers in the community or a loved one or family member, that you understand the stages of change is not going to be a linear project. There is no clear sense of how much time is needed for each stage or how long a person can stay in each stage. And the model assumes that individuals make coherent, rational, logical plans in their decision-making process when, of course, we know that this is not always true, especially if we look at ourselves, right? I just shared with you an example of how I'm so disciplined to make my daily schedule, and I still am unable to do it on a regular basis. Most people cycle through the stages several times before achieving a stable life change. Folks, give people permission to not be perfect out of the gate. Give permission to yourself, okay? Helpful stage-appropriate interventions. When somebody's in pre-contemplation, the helpful stage-appropriate intervention is to raise awareness of the problems that it's causing in their lives. It doesn't mean that you're going to instill fear. It doesn't mean that you're going to belittle or berate them. It just means you're going to raise awareness in a gentle way about the consequences. Contemplation, help to see the consequences of their choice. Once again, in alignment with pre-contemplation. Preparation, you can help identify reasonable potential solutions. What are some options for your behavior change? What are some pathways you're willing to consider? Action, support and help to continue towards sustained management. Refine if necessary. So if somebody's in action stages, and in the action stage, how can you support them to continue on with this progress? Ask them, is this pathway, is this pattern, is this model working for you? Maintenance develops new patterns of behavior. The individual learns skills to adopt a new lifestyle, and you can celebrate the individual's successes and acknowledge their achievements. And then reuse, assure individuals that this is not a failure, and encourage individuals for quick re-engagement. Remembering always that the individual decides. Successful self-changers can go through these stages 3 or 4 times before they make it through the cycle of change without one slip. Some will return to the contemplation stage. Slips provide the opportunity to learn. Support autonomy and empowerment. That's how to help achieve behavior change. I do want to point out one other thing while we're in this topic, and that's the topic of enabling. Folks, loved ones with the best intentions, of course, are living in fear for the safety of their loved ones and themselves oftentimes. And it's really, really important that I offer you to take a look at your own behavior. And if you are enabling, if you are giving money, if you are giving rides to drug dealers, if you are allowing individuals to reside in your house despite safety issues, your own personal or your family safety, please seek some support and some guidance on that, because that is considered enabling, and it makes it very difficult for the individual who's struggling with substance use disorder to take responsibility of their own lives when loved ones are enabling them. Okay, we'll move on to the stages of recovery next.
Hey there, this is Ginger. I hope you're learning a lot from this series. I'm asking for your help in supporting my tireless efforts. There's a few ways in which you can support me. Tell your friends about this video series, subscribe and like each video here on YouTube down below, make a donation on my website, or invite me to deliver this training in person. Together, we can all be part of the solution. Hope to see you soon, and thank you.